All right, Ben, I want to talk about a hot topic, boundaries.
Big one.
What are boundaries and why are they important?
So, boundaries are a way that we communicate with each other. There's good boundaries and bad boundaries. You have a couple of different types of boundaries, but in essence, it's a form of communication. It's telling somebody how you want to be treated. So there's a boundary out there where it's firm, it's clear. People know where you stand. They know what to talk to you about, what not to talk to you about, how to treat you, how to not treat you. Then there's boundaries out there that I call like the sort of the rubber fence, kind of flapping in the wind, where your boundaries go with whatever it is that's happening. It's mixed messages and stuff. And then there's another boundaries that is super rigid, that it's so tight and so wound up that it's difficult to have any type of social graces, to talk to anybody. And then there's one more boundary, which is really enmeshment, where there is no boundaries. Yeah. It's like you don't even know where you end and the other person begins.
Yeah. AKA codependence, right?
A lot of codependence,
yeah.
Yes.
So you're talking about, you said how we want to be treated. So it's quality, but it's also quantity or like access, right? Like to what extent can somebody have access to me and in what areas and what is the scope of that access?
Right. And also figuring out for yourself what's important to you. And what's okay for the public to be able to be aware of, and what's not, and what you want to covet, and what you are willing to share.
Sure. So obviously, if it was an intellectual exercise, people would never have any problems with this, because you could say rationally, this is my boundary, and
right.
It is what it is. But obviously, that's not the case. People have a very hard time setting boundaries. I'm assuming you're going to say that there's a big emotional influence on the ability to set boundaries. Why is it that people have such a hard time with this?
They do, because it's so ingrained in them and their behavior over and over and over again over years of communicating that way have caused them to react. There's a lot of patients, for example, that have never heard the word no. They come into treatment, they hear the word no, and they immediately go into a meltdown. They immediately go into, pounding their fists on the ground and their feet, and, a temper tantrum. So there's that. There's patients that they don't get a straight answer, and so they make demands that they want a straight answer. And it's also about finding what you're okay with and what you're not okay with. But yeah, there is an emotional component to boundaries, and that's part of treatment is learning what your boundaries are. Easier said than done with a lot of the patients.
So in the spirit of that, what are some of the things that you do clinically, both with patients and families, to address boundary setting?
So the first thing that we do is we introduce the concept of structure. There's a structure to treatment. There's a flow to treatment. Respect that. And so we want to take the majority of patients that we have, and we want them to respect the times of group, respect the rules of group, and respect the flow of the day and how it operates. That's one of the ways in which boundaries are set. The other way is to discuss what is okay to talk about with your family members and what's not okay to talk about with your family members, and then implement that. How do we implement that? We communicate that with the patients and with the families. Oftentimes, patients relapse. I call it a relapse when they don't adhere to the boundaries because they're so used to it. I'll give you an example. I had a family in my office with their son, and they really wanted him to socialize more, to reach out to other family members, and he agreed to do it. But mom, who was known as a helicopter mom, kind of rushing in and saving the day, she's sitting in my office writing out names of Aunt Jenny and Uncle Bill and all this stuff and handing it to him. And I just stared at her and I said, Mom, what are you doing? She said, well, how's he going to get the information? And I said, he can ask. And so it's so ingrained in her that she just went ahead and did it. Once I pointed it out to her, she kind of laughed a little bit, and we can have humor, right? We can laugh at ourselves, and she got better, and she's actually started to get better as a result of those kinds of things.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.